What's up, YouTube? I'm here to do my prediction video for UFC Fight Night Smith versus Rakic. I waited a little while to do this card because they weren't saying whether the Caceres fight was going on until basically the weigh-in. So I was waiting until that fight got finalized before I did this video. So now all the fights are finalized. Let's start at the bottom. The first fight is Sean Brady versus Christian Aguilar. And to me, they're both striker wrestlers. I just think Sean Brady's at least a level or two higher at both. I think Christian probably hits a little bit harder, but I think in terms of overall technique and shit like that, Sean's definitely way better at both the striking and the wrestling, and I think he's just going to outpoint Christian and maybe eventually finish him. Like I said, other than Christian landing a big shot, I just think Brady's better at everything. Next is Poliana Viana versus Emily Whitmire, and this is kind of a coin flip. Neither of these chicks look amazing to me. They're both just okay striker jiu-jitsu chicks. It's one of those fights where until you see them on the ground, you don't know who's the better grappler because they seem shitty against the better people, but then they're way better than each other when they fight. I'm leaning towards Poliana just because she has more experience, but really, this is a fight where the second hits the ground, you're going to see who's the better grappler, and that person's going to win. It's one of those fights where it's like, if you're betting, don't bet on this one, because, I mean, literally, this one could go either way. You don't know until it hits the ground. But yeah, I'm going with Poliana just because of the experience. Next is Alex Caceres versus Austin Springer. To me, I think Austin Springer didn't look that good in the Dana White Tuesday Night Contender Series fight. I mean, even though he won by submission over Gege Gigante, he was getting outstruck really badly for the first round and a half until Geiger started to slow down. Caceres doesn't have that same power, but he has the same striking ability, in my opinion. But he's got a way better gas tank. I also think Caceres is a better grappler overall. I don't think Austin is the greatest grappler overall. He's okay wrestling, but he's not a great submission threat. I just feel like Caceres has the better striking, the better overall wrestling and grappling, and I think he's just going to outpoint Austin for 3 rounds and win a pretty clear-cut 30-27 decision. Next is Alessio Di Chirico versus Zach Cummings, and to me, this is going to be who's got the better wrestling. I think that's probably Zach. I think these guys are both just okay strikers who like to wrestle in the clinch and, kind of go for takedowns in the clinch against the fence. And I just think Zach's the better wrestler. I think he's going to have a better ability at controlling Di Chirico against the fence and just landing a little bit more in the dirty boxing range. Di Chirico's probably got a little bit better conditioning, but I think, like I said, I think Zach's got the better wrestling and overall technique. In the kickboxing, I don't think it's that, I think they're pretty close. But like I said, I think it's going to be mostly against the fence, and I think Zach is going to be the one mostly pushing Di Chirico against the fence. So I think Zach's going to win at least a 29-28 decision. Next is Malara Martin versus Hannah Cyphers, and even though Hannah's lost her last couple, I feel like she's still really good. I still think she has a big power advantage over most chicks. And to me, I don't think Molly's this amazing fighter. I think if Hannah just fights smart, she should be able to win. And like I said, I know she's on a losing streak, but I still think she's really good. And not amazing, but you know what I mean, a good fighter. And I think that as long as she's fighting smart, she should be able to win this fight. So I'm going to pick Hannah. I think as long as she doesn't do anything crazy, she should be able to keep it on the feet and just outpoint Martin and win by decision or knockout. Next is Maki Pitolo versus Ipa. I can't say his last name. To me, these are two good strikers going at it. I think that, my biggest thing is just the power and volume. I don't think Ipa has very good knockout power, and I think Maki Pitolo does. I also think he throws better volume. I don't think Ipa's this amazing wrestler. I mean, he has decent takedowns, but I mean, to me, it's just, I think this is going to be a striking fight from start to finish, and unless Ipa can just, unless his technique's so good that he can just completely keep Maki off of him for 3 rounds, which I don't think it is, I think as soon as Maki starts to let his hands go, to the body and to the head, I think he's going to start to pull away. I think Maki just needs to not waste his time wrestling like he did in his last fight. I think that's what kind of hurt him, was he kind of went for a takedown when he didn't really need to at that point in the fight. And I think that that's what it is in this fight, is it's just don't waste your energy on takedowns in the early part. It's one thing if he does it in the second half of the second or the third to kind of slow Ipa down. But like I said, I think the striking is about even. It's just Maki hits way harder and he throws better combos, in my opinion. And so he just needs to do that, and I think he'll probably either win by decision or get a late TKO in the third. But I'm leaning towards Maki to win by knockout or TKO, like I said, late. On to the main card, the first fight is Magomed Ankalaev versus Ion Cutelaba. To me, this fight's going to be what the first fight was. I mean, I know the fight was a little controversial, but that was partially Ion's fault, because it was you can see on the replay that, yeah, he was probably milking what he was doing a little bit to try to trick Magomed to like waste some energy and dive in on him. But from the outside, it looked like he got rocked like 3 or 4 times and just wasn't falling down. And it was like the first one kind of hit him, and then the rest, it looked like he blocked a little bit better. But it was one of those things where it's like it's hard to tell because he kept wobbling around everywhere, and it's like I don't think it's the referee's fault to think that he was just unconscious and not falling over. But I think the reason why he got rocked in the first place is going to be why he gets rocked in this round, the fight again. I think Ankalaev is just the better striker and the faster striker. His technique's way cleaner, and he just throws his strikes out a lot faster. Like I said, there's just a clear advantage in terms of the overall striking ability. Like, Ion probably hits harder, but I don't think it matters. I think Magomed is just too clean with his foot movement going in and out, and when he throws like his punches and his kicks, they're clearly faster. You could see that in the first fight. And he doesn't have a conditioning issue. Like, I mean, I've never seen Magomed slow down. He can keep that same speed and technique throughout the whole 3 rounds. And I think that's what we're going to see in this fight. I don't know if it'll happen as fast as it did in the first one, but I think Ion's eventually going to overswing on something, because he usually does, and then Magomed's just going to clip him with something and probably just be a little bit smarter about how he attacks him after that. But yeah, I just think Magomed's better at everything, and is going to be what the first fight was. He just probably finishes it a little bit later. Next fight, Ricardo Lamas versus Bill Allegro. To me, Bill looks like he's okay everywhere, but not amazing anywhere. I just think Ricardo Lamas has just got the much better striking, especially the much better wrestling. Like, Lamas could probably take this down whenever he wants, and if he's just using ground and pound, like, Lamas has really good ground and pound when he's on top of guys. I think that's probably what's going to happen. I think that they're going to box a little bit. Lamas will eventually go for a takedown, and when Lamas is on top of him, we're just going to see him kind of crush him a little bit. I don't know if Lamas gets a finish, but if he does, it's probably going to be in the second or the third with like a TKO or like a rear naked choke. But I just think Lamas is way better at everything. I mean, even though Lamas is older, I don't see him being... You know, he might not be top 15, but he's still like one of those guys like Jim Miller who's like right outside the top 15 and still can compete with a lot of good people. So I think this is too big of a step up for Billy, and I think Ricardo is just going to win by TKO with ground and pound in like the second or the third. Next is Ji Young Kim versus Alexa Grasso, and even though I am picking Alexa Grasso to win by decision this fight, don't count out Kim. She's the bigger chick. She's been fighting at this weight class a lot longer. And we don't know how Alexa's going to handle the takedowns and stuff from the better judoka fighter. You know, she had a hard time stuffing takedowns when she was fighting chicks that she was around the same size as. She's just taller. You know, I mean, I don't think she's the big flyweight. I think she was better at strawweight, which is why she kept trying to make that weight. You know, we're going to see how she's going to deal. I know Kim isn't the greatest wrestler of all time, but she has decent judo. And like I said, we're going to really see how well she does. I think this is the perfect first fight for her, because if she gets taken out and controlled real easy, then that's going to say a lot. And that's a huge possibility that a lot of people aren't factoring in. Like I said, I do think Alexia Grasso is better at everything, kind of, like striking jiu-jitsu. But if you're smaller and you keep getting taken down, it doesn't matter if you're better at both. I don't know if that's going to be the case. We'll see when the fight happens. That's why, like I said, I think this is a perfect first fight for her. I do think she will be able to stuff the takedowns and kind of keep it on the feet and outpoint Kim for 3 rounds. But like I said, don't count that out. Like, I mean, if you're thinking about betting on this fight, don't forget who's the better wrestler technically is Kim, and who's probably the bigger fighter is probably Kim. But yeah, I'm going to pick Grasso by decision. Next is Robbie Lawler versus Neil Magny, and to me, I think this fight's going to either go one of 2 ways. I think it's going to be like Neil Magny's fight against Anthony Rocco Martin, where it's this close fight where they're both kind of kickboxing, and Robbie Lawler's just a little bit better at pushing Neil against the fence. Or I think it's going to be like when Neil fought Ponzinibbio, and there's just this clear power advantage, and every strike is just hurting him. It's really tough because, like I said, I think Robbie Lawler is at one of those 2 points. He's either closer to Ponzinibbio or he's closer to Anthony Rocco Martin. I'm hoping he's somewhere kind of in the middle, and this is a tough fight, but we see him slowly do damage and get like a later finish. But that's just kind of how I see it. I think it's kind of like, you know, Neil, I know a lot of people think he's going to like run through Lawler, but I mean, even in Lawler's last fight, what's-his-face had a hard time taking him down and holding him down. Like, Robbie Lawler's a hard guy to take down and hold down. And in terms of the striking, yeah, Robbie doesn't throw the same volume as Neil, but he hits a lot harder. So it's kind of just like, if he can put the power in his shots, then he can hurt Neil. It's really tough because I don't know where his conditioning's at. He said he was going to work on that a lot after his fight with Colby. So we're going to see. I mean, this fight's big because if Lawler can kind of do what Ponzinibbio did, then I think he's still in the top 10. If he struggles like how um, Anthony Rocco Martin did, then he's probably closer to the end. Like if it's a close fight like how it was against Rocco, I know Neal's better than a lot of people give him credit for, but I still feel like Robbie at his best should beat Neal like pretty easily 9 times out of 10. And if he struggles, I think maybe he should consider, whether he wins or loses. If he struggles, that this might be the end if he can't just kind of dominate him. But I'm picking Lawler. I think it's gonna be a close fight. I think he might get a finish towards the end or win a close decision. It's tough to tell, but I think, this is a fight where we're really going to see how much Robbie Lawler has left in the tank. And I hope it's at least enough for another, 2 or 3 years. Finally, we got Anthony Smith versus Alexander Rakic. I think the fact that this fight's 3 rounds helps Smith. I think that he's obviously the older fighter. He's had way more fights. And in his last fight, even though he got beat down the last couple of rounds, like people forget, he probably won the first 2. He definitely won the first. The second one was kind of close towards the end. Glover was starting to steal at the last minute and a half, but Smith was winning that whole round up until that point. So you can make an argument that Smith was up 2-0, and his biggest problem was he was just throwing way too much. To me, it's like in a 3-round fight, and not just that, I wonder if it goes to the ground, who's better, because Smith, when he fought Gustafsson, once he hit the ground, he was pretty, he was able to get on top pretty easy, and he won by rear naked choke real quick. And that's my wonder in this fight, too, is it's like, Alexander is definitely the more athletic guy of the two, but I think in terms of overall technique, when it comes to striking and grappling, I think Smith's better in both. And I've never seen Smith get like one shot knocked out, at least in the UFC. You know what I mean? And I think his ability's gotten way better over the last 3 years. So you can't really compare early fights versus now. It's really tough because I think that Alexander has the power and speed advantage, but I think Smith has the overall technique and volume advantage. And like I said, I especially think if this fight hits the ground that Smith's better everywhere, whether he's on top or on bottom. It's tough, but I think Smith wins 2 of the 3 rounds, and I think this is probably going to be fight of the night. But I think in a 3-round fight, it's going to be easier for him to pace himself. I think it's going to be, you know what I mean? His mind's just going to be on getting at least 2 of the 3 rounds. And I think other than Alexander catching him with a huge shot, which he can. I mean, Alexander has a ton of one-punch knockout power. He's finished a lot of guys, like, just one-shot KOing them. But other than that, I think that this fight's going to be like Alexander's last fight against Volkan. I think it's going to be like both their fights against Volkan, you know what I mean? Where it's this close back-and-forth kickboxing match where one guy just kind of slightly edges out the other. And I'm leaning towards Smith. Like I said, I think he gets a late finish or a real close split decision. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Please like and subscribe.